Hello. Welcome to the Crochet Cakes YouTube channel. I'm so happy to have you here this week for a little bit of a crafty vlog. And for this vlog, we are quite literally going to be walking down memory lane. And our trip down memory lane is going to take us back to circa 2016-2017 when the Cozy Memories blanket was all the rage. Now, the Cozy Memories blanket was a blanket dedicated to setting aside a little bit of yarn that you'd use to complete a project and stitching it into this blanket. But yarny memories are obviously not the only thing that we can track. We can track mood with mood blankets, temperature blankets. We've got book reading blankets, so many things that we can track and stitch into yarn to keep our memories of them alive. So I thought that we could track the books that we're reading throughout the year. And I'm saying we just in case you want to participate, but me, Clarissa, will be tracking the books that I read throughout the year. But we won't be tracking in blanket form because if you've been here for a while, you know that finishing blankets is not my forte, and the Spicier Life blanket can attest to that. It's in a limbo of I haven't frogged it, I haven't worked on it since probably 2018, and it's there in the same bag. Probably gathered a lot of dust. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. I was saying that finishing blankets is not my forte. The exception to that is the Pilsen blanket. So what else can we use to track memories? I thought, how about a cardigan? But that would kind of be tricky if we are tracking the books that I'm reading, because I could just make like a huge cocoon shrug type of cardigan where you stitch a rectangle and then you fold it to create your little armhole opening. But I don't really use cocoon shrugs that much. So then I thought, well, we could quite literally do a reading shawl. If you've heard the term before, reading shawls are a deep V shawl. It's about 40 inches of depth from like the top of the shawl to the point of the V. And they're meant for you to cuddle up in while you're reading a book. And I thought we could literally make a reading shawl by tracking the books that we've read throughout the year. I already have some ideas about this shawl. Let me just set aside so I can put the ideas on the screen here. So the idea is a V shawl, a V-shaped shawl that we are going to start at a corner and go around increasing. Then when we hit a point, we will go back up and increase. The point will be determined by how many books I've read up to June, because I think June is kind of like the halfway point there. And then I will start decreasing on the other end until I get all the way to December. So the depth and width of the shawl will be determined by how many books I read. The other little playing point here is that I want it to be a fingering weight shawl. Whenever possible, I do want to use mini skeins from Stash, but I'm allowing some grace for that because I do know that I probably won't have yarn to match every single book cover of the books that I've read. So that is the other thing. The colors that are going into this shawl are going to be determined by yarn that I have that matches as close as possible some element of the book cover or the entire book cover. Having said that, let's go hunting for some books that I've read and yarn to match them. So these are the paperbacks that I've read. In Kindle, we have Can't Spell Treason Without T, Be Ready When the Luck Happens, and I think that is it so far. Oh, no, and Half a Soul. And I'm currently also reading one of the books that I got for my birthday on Kindle. So these are all the books that we need to find yarn for. And here are some of the minis. So let's flip you around so you can see. You didn't think I was actually going to throw the books, did you?
Let's start with the Ornithologist Field Guide to Love because I already spot like a maroon yarn that matches the cover quite well, or at least I think so. So we've got that one. Next up, I'm trying to find something that will match the Spell Shop, but I don't think I want to go for the purple because I'm not that much of a purple gal. Oh, yeah, this watercolor one is perfect. And for Big Magic, I kind of want to bring out the pink, but with the spots of color. And next, Earl Crush, which will be started eventually. I definitely have yarn that matches this perfectly. Okay, these are the top contenders from my stash. On the left-hand side, we have mini skeins or 10-gram minis that were gifted to me from my friend Anna of Stitchcraft and Wizardry, and I'm considering these two for Can't Spell Treason Without T. I think I'm going to go for the light teal one. And then for all the rest, you can look at the colors on the screen, but I think I matched the covers pretty well.
We have our books, we have our yarn, and now what shawl are we gonna make? So there are many beautiful, gorgeous shawls online that I could choose from, but since this is going to be quite color chaotic, bottom line, we want a simple stitch pattern. So I was looking at this book inspired shawl that I am designing, and I thought, why not use the same stitch, but instead of decreasing, we're going to be increasing, and that is what we're going to be doing. So we need to wind our yarn, and let's get started.
We interrupt all yarn winding plans to go to a new to me bookstore with my friend Chelsea. This is the New Romantics bookstore in Orlando, and I highly recommend it.
Good morning. Yesterday, instead of winding up the mini skein so we could start our project, I treated myself to a little girls' date with Chelsea of Knitting Tipsy. Chelsea is a wonderful, lovely, beautiful, dear friend, and I'm so lucky that she lives only an hour away. So cheers to that and to the most successful girls' date in existence. We literally had the best time. There was barely any traffic. We got to go yarn shopping because there is a yarn crawl going on near and around Orlando, all the way up to Daytona. And I got the most perfect mini skein for a book that I'm currently reading. I think I already said I'm reading Of Sword and Silver, and I'll put a picture of the book cover in the screen because on my Kindle, obviously it's black and white, so we can't see. But I got this. It's such a dark, moody teal and already has dog hair. And I think it just goes beautifully with the cover of Sword and Silver. It's very moody, just like the main male protagonist. This is by Swan City Yarns, Trusty Sock Mini. It is superwash merino nylon, and the color is Teal the Cows Come Home. That's funny. That's funny. And I also treated myself to some new yarn that has absolutely nothing to do with the shawl that we are working up together, but was still beautiful and I had to get it. So sharing that as well. These are 100 grams of superwash merino nylon in Bad Romance, which the Summer Romance Crochet Along is coming up. So I think I'm going to save that for a project for the Summer Romance Crochet Along. And then this other lovely skein, which you can see kind of picks up on some of the green hues of Bad Romance. It's just that this one's a little dirtier, a little muddier, and it's got some speckles of brown and even some lightly blue speckles here to also pick up off from the Bad Romance colorway. This is Spanish Moss. So, the whimsy in me loves moss and Bad Romance. Like, now I have the song stuck in my head. Let's drink tea so we don't sing. As if a trip to the yarn store with yarny friends wasn't special and gorgeous enough, we then treated ourselves to a little bit of coffee shop drinks. I drink tea, not coffee, but there was always tea, which I'm grateful for. And right next to that is probably, in my very biased opinion, what would be the best bookstore in all of Orlando. It's very new, and it's called New Romantics, and it's a romance-only bookstore. All the books there are romance, and I made out with two. One of them I was looking for, because I've been thinking about reading this book for a while, Isabel and the Rogue. I'm hoping there is a little bit of forced proximity in here so that I can maybe apply it to my reading for the Summer Romance Crochet Along, but I think the main tag is Enemies to Lovers, which was last year's theme for the Romance Crochet Along. And if you saw our little live for the Summer Romance Crochet Along, you know that Enemies to Lovers is not my favorite tag, not because I don't think it's a juicy one, but I feel that, and this is very personal, there are very few authors that can genuinely carry on the character growth required for Enemies to Lovers. That is a very biased opinion. But if you have any of your favorite Enemies to Lovers, let me know, and I will probably subscribe to some sort of ebook reading service just for the month of the Summer Romance make-along, really, so that I can get all the juicy details from you guys. And then I awkwardly added something to my cart that I had not been meaning to add to my cart at all. So I don't know if this happens to you, but if you grab an item and it's off a bookshelf or something, and then they're stocking up, so it's immediately replaced, I can't just put it back because the slot where it went to, I was already replaced, so I made a commitment to the book just by picking it up. So that's kind of what happened. I didn't realize that the cart that was semi-empty in the bookstore was because they were restocking the books. I know, very absent-minded. And I grabbed this one. And the very sweet woman that works there, she's like, well, you just made my job easier. And, well, had to buy the book. It's Belladonna, and I know Chelsea read it, so I didn't feel like I was going completely blind into this book purchase because Chelsea read it, and she had recommended this to me. And I think it's a little bit of forced proximity, so I am going to save this book for the Summer Romance Make-Along. Which is going to happen first week of June-ish. I'm going to coordinate the exact dates with Claudia soon, but stay tuned because as we voted last year, we're doing forced proximity as the tag theme, so important. Sorry, got distracted by my new books. Okay. Now we can certainly wind yarn, and I can walk you through the stitch we're going to be using.
It's Monday, but I thought we could recap the stitch that we're going to be using. It's the same stitch that I'm using for my reading shawl, so it's a combination of half double crochets and single crochets, and we're going to be using a 3.5mm crochet hook and of course our fingering weight yarn. I've saved a little bit of each of the yarns that I wound so that we can keep track of which yarns go with which books. I'm starting with this aqua color to represent Can't Spell Treason without T. And I'm just going to be starting with a chain of 2 because we're going to be working the triangle from one corner, increasing all the way to the middle, and then we're going to be decreasing. So we start and end in a corner. As I said, I'm going to be using a combination of half double crochets, and then on the kind of I want to say the return row, but the back row will be single crochets worked in the third loop of the half double crochet stitch. At least that was the original idea, but I honestly did not like the fabric that was created with the 3.5mm crochet hook and the fingering weight yarn. I think that's also due to the fact that when I work with a furls crochet hook, I feel that my gauge is a lot looser. But anyway, it's going to be back to the drawing board because I don't like this. The drawing board led to one of the coziest makes I've ever knit, and this is from the Hanging Rock Designs collection of Emma Potter. And yeah, we're going with this style, definitely. This shawl is 22.5 inches wide. Now I'm going to aim for 20 inches wide because we're going to be working off of 10-gram minis, so I don't think it's feasible to aim for 22.5 inches. Back to our swatching. For wrapping ourselves in ultimate coziness, I'm gonna go with the linen stitch, and I'm thinking of breaking up the linen stitch with maybe a row of trebles, or just changing the stitch in the middle of changing the books. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see how it all pans out, but our swatch is indicating good things. Okay, it's time to lock in. So I'm going to be choosing just some lo-fi with a very cute, very me background, and of course my locking in headphones. And now we're ready to get started. To start off our reading wrap, I'm going to be using foundation single crochet stitches, and this is just the beginning of our project, and you will see that there will be several false starts, but that is foreshadowing. Please enjoy the montage of me crocheting.
I wasn't actually going to show my face because I look so tired and sick, and I am both tired and sick. But we have some good progress from yesterday. I only crocheted for a little bit, but we managed to settle on a stitch, as you saw, the linen stitch, and we've completed Can't Spell Treason Without T and the Big Magic portions of the book. We are now on to the Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love, row 2. So currently I'm working up 6 rows of each color, and this, as you can see, fits entirely on the screen, so it is not a 20-inch width like I wanted it to be. It is more like 15.75. However, I thought I was cutting it a little bit close. I think I have like a yard left of my 10-gram mini, so I didn't want to overextend and just like add 2 more stitches, because I didn't think 2 more stitches was going to make a difference. It wasn't going to get me to the 20-inch width. But That's okay. We can later do a border in the contrasting color, because what I decided yesterday is that probably every 18 rows I'm going to be adding a stripe of a neutral color, just to kind of carry that stripe all throughout the wrap and have it be a little bit more cohesive, at least in my brain. So let's go outside because it's a beautiful day and I need some vitamin D and crochet.
And here we have the moment that I decided this wrap wasn't gonna be wrappy enough. I really wasn't happy with just the 15 inches of width, so we are frogging back and we're going to be adding a couple more stitches. We are back on track. In the end, I did a total of 95 foundation single crochets.
Good morning. I don't even know what this video is anymore, to be very honest. Not only am I sick, I also got my period, so I'm very disoriented and dizziness is a thing, so I keep kind of wanting to doze off. But yes, last night you saw we were still working a little bit on our side project for our book wrap, and right now, what we need to do is find out my reading journal is. Good job. You spotted it under the yarn. That is important. All right. Oh, okay. So now we're on to the spell shop. We just finished the Ornithologist Field Guide to Love, and now we're up to the spell shop. And after spell shop, it will be half a soul. So I've got my spell shop yarn right here. And actually, I think that's mistaken. I think before half a soul, we need to do the Ina Garten, be ready when the luck happens, and then we get to do half a soul. I think that's how it goes. I just never wrote down, be ready when the luck happens here. Okay, so I included it after half a soul. Let's get to work.
I am so happy that I still have a little bit of this watercolor looking yarn left. It's simply so magical and so apt for the spell shop, because in the spell shop, our main male character, he takes care of mer horses, which, as you can imagine, live in the ocean. So it's just, oh, I think this yarn is perfect for the spell shop. And I thought, while I have you here, I'll share some quotes that I really enjoyed from this book. So this is page 7. It wasn't that she didn't like people, it was only that she liked books more. They didn't fuss or judge or mock or reject. They invited you in, fluffed up the pillows on the couch, offered you tea and toast, and shared their hearts with no expectations that you'd do anything more than absorb what they had to give.
Amor, me duele tanto, me duele tanto, amor, que no creemos.
Another quote from this book that I really like is on page 58. There's no such thing as a weed, Kaz said. That's a cruel term made up by people who label some plants as unwanted and some as valuable, as if the worth of a living thing is measured by how useful it is to another living thing, as if a plant can't have its own intrinsic worth. He was so worked up that he raised his leaves high and shook them. It was the longest, most passionate speech she'd ever heard the spider plant make.
Of course, the color that I completely gush about, how perfect it absolutely is because it represents multiple points in the spell shop, I can only get 4 rows out of. I know that is the only bit I had left of that color. So, do I finish the row in something else, or do I frog back and leave only 4 rows?
Okay, I found this, and it's a close-ish match, like at least it's in the same color fields, but
Can't say no without trying. So we're trying. And we'll say no after.
More about that project, because it's only one, it is kind of smaller, but it goes.
having finished the spell shop, I then moved on to Half a Soul, the adding the color for the book Half a Soul. I actually didn't record any of that footage, for which I apologize because I did have stuff to say. So I'll just quickly say that I went into Half a Soul blind. I know that's not something I usually do, but I did devour the book. You know, there was magic, a backstory that I really liked. However, I did feel that it was just a little bit rushed for my taste. And yeah, that is all I will say about Half a Soul at the moment, because we need to move on and talk a little bit more about Be Ready When the Luck Happens, Ina Garten's memoir. I've mentioned this in my newsletter, so if you're subscribed to my newsletter, this might be like a little bit more of a review of what I think about this book, but it's just so interesting to read memoirs about, you know, people that you find interesting and people that when you started watching their cooking show, they were already on TV, you know, they were already famous, and just it's so easy to get caught up a little bit in the glam, or what you assume to be the glam, and then forget that behind this there's an actual person that has had a whole life that you know nothing about. And it's just, I don't know, it was just, I really enjoyed the way the book was written, and it's a book about food and running your own business and, a woman-owned business in the 70s. And yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I've done all the books that I've read up till now. It is time to go finish a book so we can add her to the blanket. Oh, but we need to wind yarn. But first, let's get cozy and read. It's not that I think of Sword and Silver is a bad book. It's just I'm not really vibing with the characters. And there was a very brief moment there where I was like, okay, main character, you're okay, okay. And I'm glad this was just said on purpose for comic relief, because I think this is one of the most horrible lines that can be used. And if you have worse lines that can be used, do let me know in the comments below. Like, what is the most cringy line that you read on a smut scene in a book? So this one, like I said, is used for like on purpose comic relief, but like if it would have been serious, I would have definitely stopped reading here. So he glances down to where his because I don't want to get, demonetized, is tenting his pants. I'll give you inflated, all right. Like, I'm glad that was literally comic relief and that was the purpose. Like, he was making a joke. Because if it would have been real, this would have been the end of the book for me. But yeah, I am 77% through this book. And I'm still not vibing here. But I will finish it. It's not that bad. It's just not my cup of tea. Quite literally. Good morning. If you can hear something, it's the AC running. And as you can see, I haven't even had my first cup of tea. That is how much I wanted to talk to you, to complain about the fact that the book that we were finishing last night, it didn't end. Okay, there's a second book and it hasn't been released. I'm not a happy camper. I think I've said this before on the podcast, but I like stories to finish in one book. I don't mind a series of books as long as the plot of each book is finished in that book. Does that make sense? Anyway, I was talking to Mom about this last night, and I was telling her that the next book that I was going to pick up was the book that she gifted me for my birthday, which I shared with you in the podcast. And she said, oh, if you're upset because that book doesn't have, like, there's a sequel to it, then maybe you shouldn't read the one I gifted you because it's part of a 10-book series and they haven't finished the series. How could you do that to me? So, a little bit up in the air what book we're going to be reading next, but we are definitely going to keep up our reading streak of at least finishing 1 to 2 books a month so that we can continue adding minis to our wrap. Now, as I said previously, I'm a little bit sad that, you know, I didn't get the width that I wanted, but I am going to find a way to do a border and just add it to the wrap to maybe get it to the 20 inches of width. Or, you know, first off, maybe I should block it now that I have a nice chunk of it done to see how the fabric is going to behave. Let me know if you've ever done a project like this. Have you ever tracked your emotions? Have you ever tracked the temperatures? Have you ever tracked your book progress? And of course, making a little wrap of the books that we've read is not the only way to track our book progress. There are so many other ways to go about it. I especially like one where you kind of embroider a bookshelf and then you fill in every time you finish a book. Oh, it looks so beautiful and makes me kind of want to give embroidery another try, but that would be a topic of conversation for maybe a crafty retreat if I ever manage to get to one. Oh, tea's done. And with that, I think I've spilled the tea on my thoughts for all of these books that I've currently read. And I don't know about you, but I had fun. I had fun sharing my thoughts on these books, as well as recording my readings for this year. I think it's just, ooh, too much milk. I think it's just fun, you know, to do little whimsical projects like this. And maybe you have a different system to me. Maybe you want to record the length of each chapter, or maybe you're gonna color code your star chart. Like, that made no sense. Maybe you're gonna color code your star rating system. So for 1 star, maybe you kind of go with a gray. For 2 stars, maybe you go with a blue or gray, you know, kind of like that fade, but for a star system. I think that would be really, really fun as well. And I should have probably brought a plate to put the tea bag in. Okay, we're gonna wash that later. So again, thank you so much for being here with me today. Let me know what book you're reading and if you feel inspired to track that story. Please do remember, if you want to record projects and stories, we are going to be running the Summer Romance Make-Along starting sometime in June. I have to email Claudia to kind of finesse when in June we are starting, because if all still goes to plan, I will be traveling and I will be back the first week of June. And if I'm not mistaken, Claudia's going to be running the Dodgy Bag Make-Along, and that usually ends at the beginning of June. So she might want a little bit of a break between make-alongs. That's a good cup of tea.